and Dingle. As you've just been off camera talking about clubs or associations, so my next question is, what clubs or association are you a member of, or other single species groups, or as you've just been alluding to there, the disabled fly fishing?
Well, look, obviously with tench fishers, joined that, well, thanks to my son and daughter, after the national championships. I went back home and they, what do you want for your Father's Day? And I said I wouldn't mind membership of the tench fishers. I said it seems quite a good little group. So they started me off, and because I've been doing it ever since, you know, and took over the RO's job because about 2 years later. Yeah. So I've been RO ever since, you know. But I used to belong. I don't belong to any club now. Yeah. The Kincaid Angling Club fell by the wayside as the service people moved off to different barracks or retired and what have you. It's just a pond with some fish in it now, and you know, and I'm afraid with my back and legs the way they are, with everything is steps. I just can't go there safely. You know, and all the other, obviously, all the ones I had down south I've closed off. Although I used to always get the Tunbridge newsletter sent up to me. Yeah. But talking about the reason why, obviously being up here with no tench fishing, very little fishing compared to down south, I was asked to join a committee that was working for anglers with a disability. First one was a blind laddie who wanted to learn how to fly fish. And then I was asked, because of the easier way of catching fish, you know, the active way of catching fish, like using a whip or spinning, you know, it was far easier if you got multiple disabilities. So Tom Mackenzie, who was the chairman of the group, said, would I mind looking after those anglers that we can't teach fly fishing to because of their mobility? So you can use your whips and your poles and your, you know, your Abu automatics. And they did a special one with it that you wound up and pulled the trigger and it wound the wind back in and line back in. And the chap from Kent, the big fishing shop in Kendal used to get me those for the lads, you know. Yeah. He used to bastardise various reels and make one. As soon as you could make one up for me, he used to send it up. All right. So I started off really just doing the coarse fishing on the canal and Hogganfield Lock. We used to take out some lads and, you know, and teach them fishing. You know, it's as simple as that. But at least they could do it and have a go at it. Because they couldn't handle fly fishing. You know, the movement of the casting is too much for a lot of them. Yeah. And I started off, and in 1972, I think it was, about 3 years after I came up here. Yeah. I met Tom at a sports show that I was at with Adidas, and both the pair of us were waiting to see the boss man, and he said, you do that funny fishing. I said, what do you? He said, they're called fishing. He says to me, I said, yeah. I said, I'll do it up here. He said, well, we've got a night class at St Augustine's School. Would you like to come along? And that's how it all started. And I did it for the next 34 years.
I was just going to say, how many you had a long association with it?
All voluntary. Yeah. But I mean, I can sit there proudly and say that I sat round that table, and under any other business, at the end of a committee meeting, I would say, why can't we have competition in fly fishing the same as we do in coarse fishing? So I pushed and pushed and pushed, and they got to the stage where they got a bit like this interview. People have been getting fed up with me.
Like dripping water torture.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, worse than that. Oh, the Chinese water torture's got nothing on me when I start. Yeah. you know, I pushed and I pushed and pushed, and before we knew where we are, we had our first national championships on Menteith for Scottish anglers in 1980, and by 81, 79, and then in 1980 we had the first international, and as it is, we go round in circles, so it's Scotland, Wales, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, England, Ireland, in rotation.
Yeah, a bit like home international.
Yeah,
yeah.
And being, you know, being president of your own committee or international committee when you were host. So when it was held up here, you know, I had Taggart and Paul Young and quite a few. Taggart, because was smart with manners.
That's Paul Young the angler, not Paul Young the singer.
Paul Young the angler, actor.
Yeah.
He was one that was pushing Tom for getting us to do competition angling, because he used to fish for Harriet's. Harriet's school. Paul, he was an international angler.
Yes, nice guy as well, isn't he?
Cracking guy. You know, couldn't. He did all the narrating on the videos that we made about the wheelie boat and the pelican boat and the tackle that have been adapted, and the hoist. Yeah, we had made a hoist. Keith Dockham was the person behind all the technical side, engineering side, because he was training officer for Rabcollar and the shipbuilders. Yes. So he was on the committee and friend of, you know, Harriet's friend of Mackenzie's, and so I just joined. I tagged on at the end. You know, Cave Brown was in charge of all the sighted anglers. He was at the Browse Centre in Edinburgh. He was on the committee, and so about 6 of us. I made the 7th one on the committee, and I just dealt with and start off I dealt with it, you know. But then I got to know how to fluff chuck and.
Yeah, a good example of, you know, sort of improvising, adapting, and overcoming as well. Really, because I guess that, like you say, you were building a model for it.
Yes, yeah. So, but I enjoyed it. It was hard work. When I look round the cottage now and see the paperwork, and I don't know what to do with it. Do I burn it, scrap it?
No,
but there's so many names and addresses. Yeah, and also because in the tenches I got all their addresses. Because of when I did all the merchandising. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, I guess the other thing is, it's like you were saying, just looking around the room in here. I mean, I know we've taken some photographs, but you've got a picture meeting the Princess Royal over there, like Princess Anne. That was all from the, you know, the recognition of the work that you did.
That was my name was put forward for 30 years voluntary work, and of course the Torch Trophy was actually created after the war. The Olympic Games was meant to be held in Dresden. I think it was Dresden. It was meant to be held there, and it was so badly bombed there was no way the Germans could put on an Olympic. So Britain took it on within about 2 or 3 months. Within 2 or 3 months, we had organised, but it was the voluntary staff that had to make the competition amenable, because they didn't have enough time to do anything. So they decided, all the people that helped out at the Olympic Games. I think it was 37, was it?
I wasn't. It was well before I was born. No, because it'd be after the war, wouldn't it?
Well, we're talking about First World War, I think.
Oh right. Yeah, possibly.
I think that's when Dresden were taking it on. You can look it up.
Yes.
Old Eddie there could do a bit of a job.
We could probably Google it.
Yeah, he could Google it.
Yeah, 30 years before I sort of made my guest appearance on this.
So as I say, Britain took it on, and you know, I've got a big cup and a trophy. It's only a little trophy, but the trophy is of the Olympic torch. Yes. That was carried into the stadium, and they made a replica of that on a base and presented it to everybody.
No, something to, as you say, something to look back on and be proud of. Because I know just been involved in coaching, even for the short amount of time that I've been involved, it's rewarding, and the feedback that you get, and I know it's not for everybody, but like you say, to be doing that for over 34 years, that's dedication.
It's just a thank you and a smile.
Yeah.
That's all it takes to make you feel gratified.
Absolutely. No two ways about it. Okay, we'll just take one more question in this little section here. How, in your opinion, has specimen tench fishing evolved over the years that you've been fishing for them, and in what way would you say?
Well, obviously numbers. From majority, there wasn't many tench anglers in the old days. I mean, if you take Roberts and Walker and these sort of people, I mean, John Roberts was a founder member of the Tench Fishers, but 100% of him was carp.
Right.
Walker was the same, carp. They were all carp. Taylor, carp. They weren't tench anglers. They weren't tench people, shall we say. It's because they caught tench.
Okay.
That they became, as far as I'm concerned, that they became involved with tench, and as it's gone on. But you've now got specialised tench anglers that don't even bother with carp. We've got a number in the club.
True.
But at the end of the day, there's an awful lot of specialised anglers that are actually just fishing for tench. I think one of the bits of tackle that has helped tench anglers is actually the hook.
Yeah.
From the type of hook that we used to have in the old days, going back 20, 30, 40, 30 years, they weren't conducive to tench mouths. It's only now that the little the new type hook can actually get through that gristle, because in the old days, the amount of pull-outs you had was unreal.
Yeah.
So
it's like chemically sharpened hooks then, yeah?
Well, this is it. I mean, they were just, I can't remember the gold one I used to use in Ireland, but I would pull out a one of three.
Yeah.
But it's only until you've been in a boat in Ireland that you're not pulling out of them. The tench is clever enough to rub his mouth against the stem and actually twist it and pull the hook out himself.
Leave the hook in the stem.
And it's only when you sit and watch them do that time and time and time again that you realise it's a species of fish that is cunning and more eluding. Well, I find it the most fascinating fish out. I really do. I've always felt that way since I went to Garnafalla, because you're sitting on top of them, you're watching them. And they say, if any tench angler can get on the water with either a glass bottom boat or keeping the sun off their eyes, and just go over the water without disturbing it, you don't go away from it because it's disturbed water. If somebody can propel you forward and you lay over the bottom of the boat, it's amazing what you can find.
Yeah, well, that's just drifting over.
Yeah. You get somebody to drift you over or row you over. I used to watch and John used to row, and you can see all the runs that they use. You can see the feeding areas, grazing areas. It's unbelievable. That's when you get to know the swim and the habit of a tench.
Yeah.
And as I say, there's far more people now specialising than there was in the old days.
Yeah.
But I don't see any of these new rods are any better than the one I used. I never used to lose that many, and could always cast the distance I wanted. But I did have I had two rods when I used to go down to Farlow's, and the chap told me to come inside. He said, "Go down and go down to see Pete Fordham." He said he's building rods downstairs.
Tony, yeah.
Tony Fordham. Yeah. And I went down, and sure enough, he was down there, and we got talking about, is there a specialised tench rod? And ended up, he built two for me, and what he did was, if you take a 12-foot blank for carp, if you wanted it for carp, he'd cut the top off. so shorter and stockier. And if he wanted it for tench, you know, heavier duty bream fishing, he actually cut the handle off, so he had a softer top. You know, and that's how his first tench rods came about.
Would they be carbon or glass fibre?
Glass fibre. Glass. Yeah. Oh yeah, we're going back in the 60s, sort of. 60s. Yeah. So he built my first two. Unfortunately, they got stolen.
Any idea what you paid for them? No, too long ago.
Too long ago. Okay. It wasn't over 100 anyway.
No, well, so that would be.
It wasn't over 100.
Yeah, because you were saying Farlow's was it's Piccadilly, isn't it?
No, on Pall Mall.
On Pall Mall.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not the type of tackle shop that I would use.
No, well, as I say, I think I said earlier on, I used to go there. I mean, those used to, during my lunch hour, dress well, Rolex 3-piece suit, and press my face against the window, and it was all Hardies and, you know, and top quality rods, reels, and flies, and big salmon in the window, and all this sort of thing. And I've got my nose pressed against the window, and my hands keep shooting my eyes so I could see through to the shop. And I'd done it for about 2 weeks, and the bloke inside came out and said, "Why didn't you come in?" I
took pity on you.
Yeah. Well, he knew I was out of my depth. You know, he knew that you know, I wasn't a salmon angler. I didn't look like a salmon angler.
No.
And then he said, "Look, go down and see
Tony Fordham."
Tony Fordham.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah. What was his partner? Davenport, wasn't it?
I'm not sure. You'd know better than I would, Dingle.
Was it Davenport?
Fordham and Davenport.
Yeah.
I
Thought it was.
Bit of history. All right, we'll have another break.